This is The Fix, where every Sunday, without fear or favour, we question the big role players. We look ahead and tell you what matters, how it affects you, and why you should care. With me, as usual, is my sparring partner, Sunday Times and Business Day columnist, Peter Bruce. Hi, Peter.
Karima, it's been another week in paradise.
Yes.
Jacob Zuma has joined Twitter.
Yes.
Soon after being told by the courts that he was going to have to pay his own legal costs, so it might be a form of sort of fundraising or
I'm sure it is.
But whatever is going on, it promises to be complete chaos. I mean, he could stir up a lot of nonsense.
I think so, and I think what was interesting for me about that court case was the fact that the court found that there was no legal basis for President Thabo Mbeki to enter the agreement with the outgoing president. And then, of course, Cyril Ramaphosa tried to honor what he understood was an agreement, and all we had was actually a letter signed by President Zuma at the time saying, if I am found guilty, I will repay the money. But he has to pay some of the money that was already spent, and that's about 16 million or so. That's quite a lot.
That's just on that's on the arms deal case, and the others on funding that he received for Thuli Madonsela for the State of Capture report. And there are about two. It all adds up to about 33 million rand.
It's a hell of a lot.
He doesn't have that money. It took him a long time to find enough money to finance the bit of Nkandla that he had to pay for, and he got that from a crooked bank. And so, 34 million, 35 million rand is a lot of money, and he doesn't have it. He couldn't sell it. He couldn't get single figures for Nkandla.
Well, it's going to be interesting because, of course, Jacques Pau in the President's Keepers talk about these important, influential people that are all surrounding the President. But it looks as if he is now indebted to them instead of the other way around.
Well,
his power is waning.
That's what happens when you lose power. All the people around you start drifting away, and you get surrounded by rather sort of dotty characters who follow him around to his court cases.
You know what I think he's going to do, to be very honest? President Jacob Zuma has been very good at talking to the kind of unorthodox churches. And we know these churches are huge businesses. I think he's going to try and fundraise there. Interestingly for me enough, I read in the papers this morning, the ANC is saying that members can do what they want, but they distance themselves from the fundraising campaign. So that's the first indication. And then, of course, also everybody's saying that President Zuma is going to appeal this. The presidency, on the other hand, is not going to appeal. The president is accepting it. And I think it's going to have a knock-on effect, Peter. Imagine someone like Malusi Gigaba, Lynn Brown, who've been fingered in the reports. They're now suddenly going to have to pay for their own legal costs to defend, their positions and their allegations that
Jacob
they're
Zuma
wrong.
would know too that if he does appeal it, there's more
cost. Do you think Mike Helens is going to work for free?
And no, Mike Helens is not going to work for free. And although he did make a point, and I wish I could find the quote, that there was a lot of money around to fund things. So maybe Zuma's not in this kind of dwang that people like Tom Moyane might be, because I don't know that, that Jacob Zuma's benefactors have to fund the rest of the.
Well, if you look at the amount of money that is said to have disappeared during the state capture period, we're talking about R1 trillion. We see in the newspapers also that Eskom is taking Together to court, and of course they have to cough up, and the contract is going to be nullified because the coal is, of course, substandard. So the taps are really drying up here, Peter.
No, they are, and it's a good thing. I mean, I think there's a strong case for Eskom if it really is struggling for coal.
Yes.
I mean, the Optimum coal mine is basically closed down, sitting still. It's the second biggest coal mine in the world.
Yes.
And it's not supplying Eskom.
Exactly.
And it could do it all on its own, quite honestly. And if the state needs to, and our country needs to, and we are in danger of going bankrupt if we don't get the coal, depending on who you listen to, then we should just go and get it from Optimum, take it.
Yes, absolutely. The other case, of course, that was interesting is Mr. Moyane. I mean, he was told by the Constitutional Court, go to the lower courts. He got there, and he was, of course, rejected on the same basis. And he's now trying desperately to get back to the Constitutional Court. But he, too, it is suspected by people who've been following the case, wanted to be reinstated so that he can access the salary, so that he can, of course, pay some of those legal bails. So this is all about money.
It's not going to happen for Tom Moyane either. He's done and dusted. Cyril Ramaphosa has been given the go-aheads by the court and has now appointed a panel to find him a new SARS commissioner. It might be Mark Kingon, who's done a sterling job standing in, but I suspect it'll be somebody from outside. Both the new SARS head and the new NPA head, yes, Shamila Batohi, have got they walk straight into a big problem, absolutely, which is that everybody below them is appointed by their predecessor.
Yes.
And they've got to go.
They've got to clean up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Shamila Batohi particularly will have a difficulty because she, of course, has to deal with some of the people that were very, very close to people like Ngumkobo Jiba and Murwebe. And I think she has to start, of course, in KwaZulu-Natal with Moiponi Noko.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, is that... Yes, and Karima, listen, you were in a police station for much of the week. We were all following you with great anxiety at one stage on Twitter or and Facebook. You've laid charges against somebody who threatened you.
Yes, the one thing that a journalist hates is, of course, to become the story. Yeah. And so I had to take a long think about what I wanted to do. But I got an SMS, in fact, a WhatsApp message from a member of the EFF who is from Elliot in the Eastern Cape.
Elliot Dale.
Yes, Elliot Dale. And he effectively put me on a list saying that I'm the #1 enemy, and that's the word he used, together with Paulie van Wyk, together with Ranjeni Moonsamy, Adrian Basson, and Vodacom of all people, and then of course also Max Dupree and a range of others, and Adrian Basson. Now, this is not the first time that the EFF threatens journalists. Julius Malema, when he laid so-called charges against Pravin Gordhan, spoke to his supporters outside the court and mentioned me by name. And in fact,
done it to me before too.
Exactly, and precisely because of what happened to you and the fact that we won the case against the PLF to stop intimidating you, and we got an interdict, I felt that the kind of proto-fascism that the EFF is showing needs to be stopped in its tracks. It starts like this. It starts with intimidation. They test how much the public will take it. They test how much we will take it. And I wasn't prepared to have any of that. So I went to the Sophia police station. The most incredible thing happened to me there. I got to the police station. I said what my business was. I was taken to a Colonel Govender, and he said, yes, you have a case. Please take the lady down to the charge office. I get to the charge office. I speak to Captain Masina, and when I tell him that I'm there to lay a charge against the EFF, his face falls. And then he says, I must sit in the queue. And I sit in the queue, and whilst I sit in the queue, the entire police station's commanding officers are in a prayer meeting, and the people are left to wait. And when they're done, they start helping the people, but no one comes to help me. Eventually, a police officer came out. I took a picture of him on my phone, and he said to me, are you in the wrong place? You have to go to court because you have to get a restraining order. So I said, no, I'm not in the wrong place. I don't want a restraining order. I want to lay a charge of intimidation and incitement to violence because I've been declared an enemy, and I'm a journalist. I have to cover the EFF. I can't be declared an enemy. And then nothing happened. So I went back up to Colonel Governor's office, and I was told to go to the station commander. By the time I got to the station commander's office, Kay Makubela, the spokesperson for the police, was in fact there already, and then suddenly they took down my details, my statement, and about 15 minutes later it was captured on the computer, and I've now got a case number. So I'm going to be taking this EFF member to court to try and intimidate me. I think we're going into an election. We need the IEC to get political parties to pledge that we will be allowed to do our work without being intimidated, hurt, or incited.
Did you have any communication after you did this from the EFF leadership at all?
Not a single communication. They've been attacking people like Paul and Ranjeni horribly on Twitter. Luckily, I'm not on Twitter, but they use every public opportunity to try and discredit me. But I've had no communication, and I want no communication. I want to meet them in court, Peter.
Yeah. So, in order to get to court, though, the police have to proceed with the charge, right?
Yes, they have to proceed, and they already told me they're going to have to farm it out to the Eastern Cape because the person, the EFF member, is from there.
Yes.
So my lawyers are going to keep a very strict watch on what happens and where it happens. I've gotten quite a lot of support from different organizations. The South African Communist Party issued a statement yesterday warning what a threat against journalists mean and linking it, for example, to the race baiting of Pravin Gordhan and, of course, also Mr. Ishmael Mamonian. So it's part of a broader campaign, I think, and I think that's you know what we have to talk about. Well, after the break, our panel looks at sexual harassment and the struggle for gender equality in both the private and public sectors.